A day in the life of a member of parliament. We've asked Brad Redekopp to come and spend a little bit of time today talking a little bit about what's happening in his world and why he got involved and what happens just that day-to-day work that's involved. Many of us don't know about. Brad, thanks you for taking some time and coming on the show. I want to shed some light on what it is you're doing. I want to find out, firstly, I guess your background in history, what it was that you were doing that kind of led to where you are today and getting elected as a member of parliament.
Well, thanks, Randy. It's great to be with you today. Yeah, when I was younger, I always was interested in politics. I was the kid that read Maclean's magazine from cover to cover when I was in grade 8. But at the same time, I didn't want to get into politics without having some background, some knowledge. And so I went to university, got my commerce degree. I worked in business in the accounting world for about 20 years. Then I left there and started my own business building houses, did that for 13 or so years. And then I felt like I was ready to take that leap. I was unhappy with the state of our federal government, with the Trudeau Liberals in power, and really felt that now was the time to hop in and try to make a difference. And so that's what led me to get involved a couple of years ago.
And when you look at what happened after the election, what were some of the steps that you had to go through to get you to Ottawa? I guess there would be the need to set up an office and staff and things like that. Talk us through that, what you did.
Well, one of the things that really surprised me actually after becoming an MP was how similar being an MP was to running your own business. When you're on your own business, you have to deal with an office and you have to, do all the things you need to do to keep an office running. And an MP office is very similar. You have to hire staff, you have to have budgets, you have to, make sure you have an adequate facility and make sure that the staff have direction. Essentially, you are, as an MP, you're your own little boss. You're the boss of your little group there, and you have a very clear job to do with your constituents. And it's you and you alone that has to set up the systems and the staffing and the methods to actually accomplish what you need to accomplish with your constituents. So that was a surprise to me, was how many similarities there are between being an MP and running a small business.
You look at the things that you would normally do. People don't phone their member of parliament to deal with a barking dog or an overhanging branch on their neighbor's property. What are some typical calls that you would field throughout the course of the day?
Yeah, that's a good question. We do get lots of phone calls, and some of them are, as you described, the barking dog, and obviously that's not a federal responsibility. But areas that in particular we deal with, number one would be immigration issues. Number two is probably CRA issues. So essentially, think of it this way: if you're dealing with the federal government on an issue, let's just use tax as an example, and you have been trying to get through your particular issue, and you hit a roadblock, and you can't get any further, and you're not getting the right answers, you're not getting any progress. That's where we can step in. We act in many ways as an advocate for you. We can't make decisions. It's still the government department that makes those decisions, but we can act as your advocate. Sometimes people have communication problems with the government. They're just not understanding each other, and so we can step in and help that. We have a team of people that we have access to inside of different departments like immigration, like Canada Revenue, and so on. And so that's where we can help. We don't always get the results that you want, but often we can help and we can move things forward. And many times we do get positive results for constituents who need help. So that's really the major thing that we do in our office to help constituents.
When you see the connections, I guess, that you have people working on the ground in an office in Saskatoon as well as Ottawa there?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do. And so in Ottawa, we have another set of staff, and that's sort of based on all the Ottawa things that we do, more typical things that you would see on television, like House of Commons and committee meetings. And there's really two very different worlds as an MP. There's the local constituency work that I described, which is one-on-one with individuals that live in Saskatoon West. And then there's Ottawa, which is all of the House of Commons, all the the flashy, I suppose you could say, things that you see on television, the meetings, and there's many meetings with government officials, with my colleagues, with other people of different interests that want to speak to MPs. That all happens in Ottawa. So it's really, when I'm in Ottawa, it's doing sort of Ottawa-like business, and then when I'm here working in the constituency, it's all these other things. So it's it's a very two very different worlds there.
Tell us a little bit about what happens when with the travel, I guess, before the pandemic and the restrictions and the lockdowns were in place. Were you there every week or 2 weeks, or what would typically happen for you and others?
This brings up a very good point, because when I became an MP, we had, I believe it was about 2 months or 3 months of normal, quote, normal life before COVID hit. And for the most of my tenure as an MP, we've been dealing with COVID. And so we have not been traveling like usual. We haven't been in Ottawa like we usually would be. And that has changed our lives, as it's changed everybody else's lives as well. That's no surprise to anybody listening. Normally, an MP spends roughly half the year in Ottawa. It's condensed a little bit into the spring window, sort of January through June, and then again into sort of October through December. But if you work it out on average, it works out to about 26 or 28 weeks of the year is actually spent in Ottawa. And what that looks like is you hop on a plane on Sunday, you spend Monday to Friday in Ottawa, and then Friday night you hop on a plane and come home. So you're home for a day and a half and then back to Ottawa. Sometimes you stay in Ottawa over the weekend because it doesn't pay to come home. But that's the routine. And then every now and then you get a break week where you don't have to be in Ottawa, and that allows us to be in Saskatoon. Certainly not on a break, but helping out with the office activities in Saskatoon. So it's a very busy time. And you know, when I'm in Ottawa, people often ask, what do? You know, don't you get bored when you're in Ottawa? Well, you know, the day usually starts around 9 o'clock Ottawa time and goes usually through till about 9 o'clock at night. And so by the time that's over, you're exhausted from having been doing all the things you've been doing all day. You flop into bed. I happen to stay in a hotel room when I'm there. I flop into my hotel bed and go to sleep, and then the next morning up and at it again. So the week flies by and you don't have any spare time to do anything else.
Well, I think it does sound exotic on one hand that you get to travel to Ottawa, but you're away from home and your constituent base. How do you maintain that contact with the electorate here? There's people who have voted for you and those who have not, but you're a representative to both, I would think that.
Well, first of all, there's nothing exotic about hopping on a plane twice a week and waiting around in airports, and that may be exciting the first couple times, but it gets old very quickly. Staying in touch is really important, and as important as my constituents are, my wife is actually the most important there. And so even just having the time to call her and have a conversation with her, I try to do that every day. As far as constituents, we have a couple different systems that we use in our office to pass messages back and forth. And so I do my best to respond to people in the manner in which they contact me, whether that's mail or email is very popular right now, and also phone calls. And sometimes I can't get back right away, but I try to get back as quickly as I can. So essentially, when I have a bit of downtime, or if I'm in a meeting that I don't need to pay quite so close attention to, I'll be on my computer, you know, responding to people and making sure that constituents' voices are heard.
Something that you said, thinking about, is you would act as an advocate for the issues on the ground. Do we take that to mean that the government still makes the decision with the CRA or immigration and so on, but you can add some voice on behalf of the constituents that we wouldn't normally have in those offices?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And like I said, sometimes it's just simply a communications issue where, you know, oftentimes working with, say, a newcomer to Canada and their English isn't as good as our English is here. Oftentimes we can help interpret things, or maybe there's some just some things that culturally people don't understand about why things are working that way. And other times it's the government that's not understanding the circumstances, and maybe the person's done a poor job of trying to explain it. You know, so there's lots of different cases where we can come in and act as that, you know, as that advocate, like I said, is probably the best word, and just make sure that both sides are truly understanding each other. And then those decisions get made, and often it's a good thing for the constituent.
When you experience what you do in the normal course of business, as a member of Parliament, would you take some of those experiences and help to influence policy or help change procedures or things that you're encountering with people that you're dealing with?
Yeah, that's a really good question. because what we talked about so far is sort of helping the individuals in the constituency. But a big part of my reason for being in Ottawa is to see that our country functions better, and that gets straight to policies. And so it can be something like the budget. We're supposed to have a budget in a month here, and there will be relevant things there, or to all the different legislation, bits of legislation that come before us as parliamentarians. And so understanding what that legislation is, how it's going to affect us, and then trying to influence that by getting it amended or changed or whatever. And so there's lots of conversations that need to go on between myself and my colleagues, both in my party and other parties. And this is a big problem with COVID right now, because especially for a new person like me, it's difficult. I don't have those long-term relationships with all the different MPs, especially MPs in other political parties. And so normally when you're in Ottawa, you have opportunity to rub shoulders with people in the hallways or whatever else. And those opportunities just don't exist right now with COVID. And again, I'm sure lots of people watching are nodding their heads because it's the same in all kinds of environments, whether you're a student or in a workplace or what have you. It does make this very challenging for sure.
I have noticed over the years that you would naturally think that there'd be some divisiveness between political parties, but at the end of the day, we're all people. And what I found most interesting is that you can have two people of two different political parties still be very good friends, even though they're perhaps opposing with their beliefs and what they stand for. What do you experience with the short time that you've been there? It sounds like that's still carrying on.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I just said, it's a bit more difficult for us that it came in 2019 because we haven't had as many opportunities to interact with members of the other parties. But that said, the moments that I have had with them, people, as you said, people are people. And it's like, even when I'm out door knocking and speaking with constituents, not everybody agrees with me and I don't agree with everybody else, but we can still have good conversations. We can still get our points across. And sometimes in our culture today, we've lost the ability to have disagreements, have civil disagreements. And this is very important. I mean, if you and I don't agree on something, we can still have a conversation about it. And I bet you after that conversation is over, something that you said is going to impact me, and possibly something I said will impact you. And that's the heart of healthy debate. And it's so important that we maintain that and kind of build that back up, because I think we've lost a lot of that in our country. And that's exactly what happens kind of in the hallways and behind the scenes in Ottawa is MPs are people. And so we talk with each other, and even though we might not agree on everything, we do find ways to work together and move forward.
And that's a great note to end this interview on. And I want to thank you for the work that you have done. Best of luck in the future, and hopefully we can do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be on, and good luck to you.
Stay with us, folks. We're coming right back.